What's going on, football fans? Thank you for checking out the very first video of my new YouTube channel called The Island. I'm attempting to be a football analysis channel, and primarily focusing on the Chicago Bears. I've been a lifelong fan. I'm 21 years old. I grew up in California. My dad was a Bears fan since the Peyton days, and he just passed it on to me. And, especially after seeing what happened after last night's blowout loss, talking about the Green Bay Packers beating the Chicago Bears by a score of 41-25 on Sunday Night Football. I just really want to look into the Chicago Bears collapse overall as just an organization right now. It is very bad. There is not very much light or hope in any aspect. And I want to focus on who's to blame, because I see a lot of media outlets, ESPN, Chicago Bears fan pages, other sports Instagram pages, looking at Matt Nagy and Mitchell Trubisky and this defense, and there is a hefty amount of blame to go around, don't get me wrong. But I want to focus on the main problem and where it all stems from. And before that, I just want to thank you so much for giving this YouTube video a chance. I'd love for you to give me a like if you like my analysis, and subscribe if you want to tune in for some more content. I really appreciate it so much. Just thank you from the bottom of my heart, just giving me a chance, and I hope I can impress you. And if you want to leave a comment, maybe you're not a Bears fan, if you like another team and want me to do some analysis on your team or a specific aspect of your team or a player, definitely leave a comment, and I would love to do something like that. But for now, let's jump into, who's to blame. So the first easiest target, you got Matt Nagy. I mean, it's pretty easy to put the blame on him. He's been terrible at developing players, a la Mitchell Trubisky, a la Adam Shaheen, a la Anthony Miller. Doesn't play Javon Wims or Riley Ridley. Cole Kmet has done absolutely nothing this whole season. That was our first draft pick of this past year's draft. So Nagy just he can't develop players, especially offensive players. Not to mention, he doesn't adjust his scheme to fit those players. For example, Mitch, who most Bears fans who watch the game know that when Mitchell gets moving out of the pocket, he gets some, QB runs, some design runs. He plays much better. He plays with way more confidence and just actually plays the game of football, as opposed to where, dropping back 30 times a game. He looks scared. He looks lost. And now he just refuses to, prescribe some quarterback runs for Mitch. I mean, I know he was only in last game, but, look at the first 3 weeks versus the Detroit Lions, the Giants, the Falcons. There was no QB runs except for the one scramble where Mitch ran for like 60 yards on an open field because it was just a busted coverage and it was man and no one was paying attention. But you see the wheels on him, and you see there's potential there, but Nagy just refuses to tap into it. And, finally, he's just terrible at adjustments. He can't adjust in between quarters. He can't adjust in between drives. He can't adjust in between bye weeks. He's been doing the same thing. He's been trying to do the same thing, fit a square inside of a circular hole for the past 3 years with this offense, and it's just not working. And you could, maybe deflect the blame to Mitch more, but my argument with Mitch is, he never should have been there. Like, you can't blame. It's kind of like the Giants taking Daniel Jones. Like, you can't blame Daniel Jones because they picked them. Like, he could have picked. They could have just picked someone else, and no one would have ever thought as Daniel Jones is a bust. But he's a bust because that team incredibly incorrectly evaluated their talents. Like, I don't know, maybe not as much Daniel Jones, but getting back to Mitchell Trubisky, there was no reason for him to go 2 overall, especially with Deshaun Watson sitting right there. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, I don't want to hear it. No one knew he was going to be this much of a monster, but, Deshaun Watson went to 2 national championships back-to-back, won one of them, almost won 2, played in the same conference as Trubisky, started pretty sure the entire time he was there, and only had, 2 losses on his record the entire time Deshaun Watson was at Clemson, while Mitch only played 12 games, 10 games, and didn't even play for a spot in the college football playoff. Like, there was nothing he did that can compare to Deshaun Watson that would make you think, oh my God, Mr. Trubisky could be a second overall pick. He could have been there in the 4th or 5th round, for Christ's sake. So we can't really blame Mitchell for just a coach and a GM picking them at a spot that they have no right picking them at. And if you want to, if we're talking about the Green Bay game last night where they lost by a score of 41-25, you can. The defense looks soft. They look weak. They got the ball ran down their throat. They couldn't cover. But at the same time, I think I watched the Windy City Productions, if you guys know them. I'm sure you do if you're Bears fans. And, they've been carrying the team for the past 3 years. I mean, at some point, they're going to run out of gas. I mean, we've already lost pieces on the defense over the past 2 years. Injuries, COVID, losing Vic. We had a window for this defense, and it's clearly shrinking if it's not already shrunk. But even though there are still great pieces on this defense that we can build around, but I don't think that's the case with Pagano or this coaching staff or front office. So that's where it leads us to where did it all go wrong? Who's to blame, really? And if you really think about it, it all started with Ryan Pace. And the media, I don't hear them talking about him at all. You have a few people within the media. I think Ryan Clark brought it up on ESPN. But no one's talking about this GM who's been here since 2013, 2012, and has done nothing. No playoff wins. Only one playoff appearance. We still don't have a quarterback. And pretty much all we have to show for it is a wasted defense. That's about it. I mean, you look at just his draft picks. You look at Floyd, who we drafted 9th overall, and whether you want to call it player development, whether you want to tell a bad draft evaluation, either way, Floyd didn't develop in who we needed him to be with that 9th overall pick. Kevin White never got off the ground, and that was a number 6 overall pick. You have Adam Shaheen, who we drafted, which is the same draft as George Kittle, which I'm not even trying to be like, Mr. Smarty Pants or something. I wanted George Kittle. I thought he looked good. Iowa has a nice smash mouth football for the most part. They run the ball really well, and he looked like he was a good receiver. But who do we pick? We pick Shaheen, Adam Shaheen, out of, I don't even know, Ashland, like D3, D2 college football. Just makes no sense. And then to go to the Nagy era, you draft Kmet. The same year you signed Jimmy Graham with your first pick in the 2nd round, which was your first pick overall because you didn't have a first round pick. You drafted tight end after signing Jimmy Graham, who's was playing really well earlier, not so much anymore. 2 years, $10 million. When Eric Ebron gets 2 years, $8 million. It's like, what are we doing? Like, why? What could you see? Leave another comment if you think that you would take Jimmy Graham over Eric Ebron. I would love to hear why. And then and this is all on offense. Like, Ryan Pace, if you want to say he built that defense, I will say he had a good hand in building that defense. Trevathan signing, Akeem Hicks signing, the Mack trade, the Jackson pick, re-signing Kyle Fuller, picking Jalen Johnson. Those are really good signings by Pace, and I'll give it to him. However, Vic Fangio had a huge part in that. Do not forget, Vic Fangio came in with John Fox, developed that defense, which was terrible. Got some of those players pieces at a time. Trevathan and Hicks came in the same time. Kyle Fuller had a bit to develop. Eddie Jackson came in later. Jalen came in later after Prince kind of got washed, which Prince was another decent signing. But Vic really had a huge hand in just developing and working with that defense. And it's shown once Vic left, look at what's happened with our Bears defense. We let go of Leonard Floyd for Robert Quinn, who we massively overpaid for, and he has been nowhere to be found. You can put an APB out, Stephen A. Smith, nowhere to be found, okay? Then you have, before the season, we re-signed Danny Trevathan, who's 30 years old, to a 3-year, $21 million deal, 13.6 guaranteed, but release Kwiatkowski, who's 25 and got literally the exact same deal except $100,000 less in the signing bonus with the Oakland Raiders. And they both are run-stuffing linebackers. It just doesn't make sense. You let go of Callahan, who is now arguably bidding for a Pro Bowl, for Buster Skrine, who every time I see him on the television, anytime I see a play with him involved, he's getting mossed, he's getting ran over, he's getting juked, or he's getting routed. It's like, it was just a terrible signing. And now that Floyd's over in the Rams, he's actually performing a little bit next to Aaron Donald, and 4.5 sacks, which is 3.5 more than what Robert Quinn has. Like, it's just, where's the player development? These players are having success in other areas, and we're letting them go, whether from our own lack of development or just complete ignorance on what feels like how you should run a football team. Like, I just don't. If you guys want to leave some comments about how some of these defensive moves you think Pace could have been right with the Trevathan signing over Quit, Floyd release for Quinn, Callahan release for Skrine, any of these things, you look at them and Pace whiffed on all of them. And since Vic left and after that Khalil Mack trade, it's been nothing but downhill with this defense. And I think that's just where it leads us to our conclusion of, looking at how this whole Bears thing collapsed and how the Bears seem to be so close to years of solid football teams showing up week in and week out on Sunday has just shattered before us. And it's at the hands of Ryan Pace and his decision-making, and has been fully in effect ever since not only did he get into the general manager's position, but as well as when Vic left, which was pretty much the only thing holding this Chicago Bears team to a winning pedigree. But I really appreciate you guys listening in. That is my take on how the Chicago Bears came to this collapse and how Ryan Pace is really to blame for this whole ordeal. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for giving it a listen. Leave a like if you enjoyed the content. Subscribe if you want to hear more. Leave a comment if you have other teams or anything you agree or disagree with me about this video. I'd love to hear it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will get back to you with some more content later this week. Hope you all have a good week, and I'll talk to you soon. Doses.